MTBC's Billing Pro has a number of functions that are available right at the top of the screen, including the patient search. When you first open up MTBC's Billing Pro, you're going to find the patient search window is the first window that opens. Here you have a number of options by which to search for patients, and we'll just begin with the patient last name search, which is the default method of searching for patients. Put the cursor into the search field and type out a patient's last name. One thing that you can remember is that you do not need the complete last name to find any patient. If we type just the initial B and click enter on the keyboard, we'll find all of the patients whose last name begins with B. The same is true for any other initial. If we type also part of the last name, we'll also find the patients who have a last name that begins with those letters that you've entered. A handy feature of the Billing Pro search is the ability to use the space modifier in the last name search. If I know that the patient I'm looking for has a last name of Smith and a first name that begins with K, if I type Smith space K and hit enter, I'm going to find all of the patients who have the last name Smith and a first name that begins with K. Same is true if I use any other combination or any other initials. So even if I use the last name that begins with S and a first name that begins with J, I'll find all of the patients whose last name begins with S and a first name begins with J. Same is true for the letter C, so if I type the last name C, first name J, I'm going to find Jimmy Carter as well as James Court. Both of these patients have a first initial of J and a last initial of C. The same is also true if I search by first name. If I type JC, I'll find all of the patients whose last names or first name begins with J and the last name begins with C. If I do H, I'll find those patients as well. Billing Pro allows you to search by date of birth, so I can plug in the date of birth of my choice and find the patients whose date of birth matches. And in fact, I don't believe I'll need the full date of birth. I can use part of the date of birth. I use the month and the day, and I'll find all of the patients who are born on December 7th, regardless of the year. Likewise, if I just enter the month, I'll find all of the patients who are born in that month. The View All Patients option lets you load the full patient list right into the search window. And down below, you can sort the results by the last name, by the first name, by the date of birth, the account number, the chart ID, or the social security number if it's available. So right now I'm going to sort my list by patient date of birth, and immediately it sorts the list by date of birth from the oldest patient to the youngest patient. On the search list, as soon as we find the patient that we're looking for, and let me return this back to the last name, sort. As soon as we find the patient that we're looking for, we just double click on the patient's account to open that patient's record. Or we can click the open button down below. Clicking open does the same thing as double clicking on the patient's result from the patient search window. Let's go back to the patient search window. Here we also have the option to create a new patient. Creating a new patient, or clicking on this new button, has the same exact functionality as clicking new patient from the top of the window. So if we click new from the patient search, it's exactly the same as clicking new from the top row. And finally, in patient search, we have the option to delete a patient, and we also have the option to close this window. And that's the MTBC Billing Pro patient search.